Hello and welcome to Aki News, where we tell it as it is, unfiltered and uncensored. With us today is back Robert Spencer, director of JihadWatch.org and Shaman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, also author of 23 books. Latest, Did Muhammad Exist? Hello, Robert.
Hello, Annie. Always good to talk to you.
It is always a pleasure, even though the topic is unpleasant, but it is always delightful to hear your thoughts. So let's start with this. Everywhere, everybody's talking about the fact that Muslim Afghan refugee men are apparently appearing in America with their child brides, the little girls who they claim to be their wives. And I don't think we're surprised that they have a child bride, but my surprise is apparently our government is asking for guidelines on how to deal with the situation. Why is that a question?
It's a question because, of course, the United States government has painted itself into a corner. What are they going to do? Deport these guys? They can't. They can't send them back to Afghanistan, and they don't really have any other place to send them. Meanwhile, they're committed as a matter of policy to stating that Islam is completely compatible with Western law. And so now they have this clear demonstration that that's not true. And what are they going to do? They can't ignore the problem altogether. They can't let these guys in and let them continue to victimize these girls. But on the other hand, if they do anything about it, then they expose Islamic law to be something quite different from what they've claimed. And they expose their whole enterprise in bringing over these tens of thousands of Afghan evacuees without proper vetting as fabulously wrong-headed, stupid, and dangerous. And so they're in a pickle. Probably, I expect that they'll just hope that this will all go away and that the press will forget about it. And of course, the press is on their side and quite obliging, so that's likely to be the case. And they'll be able to settle these men somewhere with their child brides, and that'll be the end of anything we hear about it.
Unbelievable. For me personally, unbelievable. Where are Linda, Sarstor, Ilhan, Omer, and Rashida Tlaib to defend and save and rescue these child brides?
They don't care about these women. They only care about weakening America. And so as far as they're concerned, the introduction of these men with child brides is something that's altogether positive. These people have made it very clear that they believe the real problem in the United States is not jihad terrorism, but Islamophobia. And they would be the first to say that any discussion of child brides as sanctioned in Islam is Islamophobic. So this is the society they want, essentially, and they've got it now. And so don't expect them to be standing up and opposing it after they've done so much to help bring it about by stigmatizing and demonizing and affecting the marginalization of everyone who spoke up against these problems.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect them, but let's since we went there, let's go there. Would you please enlighten my audience of where actually in Islam having a child bride is completely allowed and nothing against it?
It's completely allowed in both the Quran and the example of Muhammad as set forth in the Hadith. And so it's normative for Islamic law. There are no higher authorities than the Quran and the example of Muhammad. And so in chapter 65, verse 4 of the Quran, it's got directions about divorce. And it says that you have to wait 3 months in case the woman is pregnant, and then you can divorce her. And this applies also to women who have not yet menstruated. Now that makes it very clear that the Quran is not only envisioning child marriage, but the divorce of the child brides. And so that is the highest sanction in Islam to the practice of child marriage. And then it's further sanctioned by the example of Muhammad as delineated in Islamic tradition. According to Islamic tradition, multiply attested in hadith that are considered authoritative and canonical and authentic by mainstream Islamic scholars, Muhammad, when he was 54 years old, consummated his marriage with Aisha, who was 9. And there are many Islamic apologists in the West today who will tell you, oh no, she was 18, she was 24, she was 40, only vicious Islamophobes think otherwise. But actually the collections of hadith, of traditions of Muhammad that are considered most reliable by Muslims, both Sunni and Shiite, say repeatedly that Aisha was 6 when Muhammad married her and 9 when he raped her, that is, consummated the marriage. That is not really something that, if it were about anything else and had that kind of attestation, nobody would be questioning it. And everybody would be saying, well, of course, that's a core part of Islamic law because it's so many times in the Hadith and so on and so on. But when it comes to this child marriage issue, Muslim apologists in the West are embarrassed by it. And so they lie about it and try to mislead people into thinking that that's not really the case, that the Islamic texts don't really teach this, but they do.
Yes, they do. I remember when my father sold me and I asked him why would he do that. He showed me actually Quran chapter 4 verse 3 said they're willing to pay a fair price.
There you go. It's all sanctioned in Islam. It's all allowed according to the Quran. I remember reading the memoirs of another Iranian that you may know. I don't know if you know him or not, Majid Rafizadeh. And he was talking about his mother being told by his father that, well, the Quran says that I can beat you, and the Quran says this, and the Quran says that. And essentially informing her that she was going to have a rough time and that it was all sanctioned by Islam.
Pretty much, yes. Okay, so I wish that was the worst news we had, but it gets worse. Published on jihadwatch.org recently, Taliban has decided to copy Islamic Republic of Iran's government. And looks like now they have a supreme leader who's not so much of a nice guy. Tell us about him.
Yeah, this is an Islamic cleric, and it's interesting to note that it was in Iran that the idea of vilayat-e-faqih was developed. I probably pronounced that terribly, but you know what I'm talking about. The rule of the cleric, that is, Muhammad was the first Islamic cleric, and he was the ruler of the Islamic community, the political ruler. And so the Iranian mullahs, Ayatollah Khomeini was the first really to pioneer this view, rule according to the idea that as the legitimate successors of Muhammad, as the Islamic clerics who are the leading clerics in the country, they also have the right to rule politically. And now this has spread to the Sunni world with the Taliban instituting the same kind of government. These people that are at the top of the Taliban government, they are all well-known jihad terrorists. 4 of the 5 people who were traded for the deserter Bo Bergdahl by Barack Obama are in the Taliban's new ruling coalition, ruling group. And these people are confirmed, hardened jihad terrorists. They are not interested in Western ideas of human rights. And above all, I think it's important to note, in light of the fact that we see these stupid, limp admonishments from the European Union, from the United Nations, and so on, the Taliban has to be inclusive in order to win the approval of the international community. These guys don't care about the approval of the international community. They care about pleasing Allah. And to please Allah, they want to impose Islamic rule and to spread their jihad outside Afghanistan. And that's what they're going to do. And they couldn't care less what the international community thinks of them.
Let's be honest for a second, Robert. Aren't they already accepted and legitimized by international community anyways?
Yeah, sure. The European Union and the United Nations, as well as the Biden administration, have already made it clear that they're going to send money to the Taliban. They're going to be aiding the Taliban. And they excuse this on the basis of a humanitarian need in Afghanistan. And that's certainly true. There is a humanitarian need in Afghanistan. The question that should arise after that, but does not, is what obligation does that incur for us, that there's a humanitarian need in Afghanistan? I'm sorry there's a humanitarian need in Afghanistan, but if the Taliban were to wish to, it could set its people to economic activity, to legitimate agriculture, to any number of other things, and improve its economic situation. But they know they don't have to do that, and they can focus all their energies on jihad because the West is going to pay for them. And the West never seems to note, ever, except for Trump when he cut off the Palestinians and cut off Pakistan, the West never seems to notice that money is fungible. And if we give money to the Taliban for humanitarian purposes, that just frees up other money they can use for their jihad. And so we're essentially financing the Taliban's jihad. But nobody seems to have any sense anymore. It's crazy.
I mean, the humanitarian aid, I would say, not just Afghanistan, many countries in Middle East, the humanitarian aid they need is for Western countries to stop working with Islamist jihadists. That would be the best aid you can give to Middle Eastern people. For example, as an Iranian American, if Obama didn't work with Islamic regime of Iran and give them billions of dollars, if Biden doesn't work with them and give them money, a lot of people in Iran could have the possibility of overthrowing the regime.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the same all over. And most of this humanitarian aid in any case is funneled into the personal accounts of the rulers. The Taliban is just going to enrich themselves with this money. That's virtually certain. You look at Mahmoud Abbas in the Palestinian Authority, and Khalid Mashal of Hamas, and Ismail Haniyeh of Hamas. These guys are multimillionaires. Some of them are billionaires. What have they done to make all that money? Not a thing. All they've done is siphon off the aid from America and the European Union, aid that was supposed to go to the poor, suffering Palestinians.
Yeah, that's just, I don't know. Okay, so let's conclude here, Robert. We have a government of Taliban, which they're calling themselves the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan government, that is built of terrorists and jihadists and drug dealers and those who are under sanctions by UN. And then we have Islamic Republic of Iran with a new president under sanctions in America. And now we have child brides coming to America with absolutely nothing we're going to do for them or save them. Now what? What's next?
A lot of trouble. I mean, the Taliban is working with Pakistan. Ashraf Ghani, the former president of Afghanistan, actually warned Joe Biden about this last summer. I mean, a couple months ago. He said, we are facing a concerted invasion, a full-scale attack with Pakistani troops aiding the Taliban. Biden did nothing, of course. Pakistan is nominally still an ally of the United States. And what we're going to see now, with $85 billion of American weaponry in the hands of the Taliban, that it's going to, we've already seen some of it being given to Iran. It'll go to Pakistan. They're probably going to wage jihad against India first. And the whole region will be further destabilized and engulfed in violence. And that's just the beginning.
When they were announcing their government for the ceremony, they invited 4 countries, only 4 countries, which was Russia, China, Iran, and Qatar. Is it safe to say we might be getting ready and looking for World War III?
It's very possible. I mean, after all, look, if you were Russia, China, Iran, or Qatar, wouldn't you want to attack the United States now? When it's rudderless, it's ruled by this man suffering from dementia and unknown handlers who are pulling his strings, and the military is more concerned with critical race theory and being woke and rooting out Trump supporters than it is with actually winning wars. This is just the time. America is weak, divided, distracted, and so trouble is coming.
And I would add also America is very misinformed. This is huge part of this is an info war, and I don't think people of America are taking the time, or at least majority of them, to get the right information. So they're very clueless as to what the reality is.
Absolutely.
So on that note, why don't you tell my audience where to go? Because you do put out the truth, you work with facts, and you don't sugarcoat them. So where do we go?
I'll tell them where to go. They should go to jihadwatch.org, which is updated many times daily, with news and commentary about jihad activity in the United States and around the world, in Afghanistan and elsewhere. And I'm at Jihad Watch RS on Twitter, and write regularly at PJ Media, as well as at Front Page.
Perfect. Thank you, Robert, for everything you do. Thank you for standing up and keeping us informed.
Thank you, Annie. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. And to our lovely audience, go to jihadwatch.org. Make sure to subscribe to their newsletter, because heavy shadow banning is going on. So you get their information on your email directly without any blockage. After that, make sure to go to liveuptofreedom.com and get some of the information I am putting out. Thank you so much. Stay safe and goodbye.